I'm Amanda Luketa. I am a sales funnel expert and business mentor for visionary women. So my work combines both energetics and strategy. And there's something that I've really noticed within the coaching industry is that so many incredible coaches are burnt out. They're burnt out and they're overwhelmed in their business. And a lot of the traditional business models for coaches, while they can work when you're just starting and to kind of get that cash flowing, they're ultimately not sustainable. So a lot of coaches that I see they're burnt out working with one-on-one clients. They're taking on too much. They're continually trading their time for money. So really the core of my work, it's freedom. It's helping to set up the strategy that is truly a sustainable business, while also focusing on the mindset and on the inner state that actually creates a life that you enjoy, not just one where you feel like you're hustling or on this other hamster wheel,
That's so necessary. I actually signed up, if you want to share too, I signed up for your workshop that's on the 25th.
Awesome.
Yeah, I signed up this morning for that. So if you just want to share a bit about what that is, and then I'll get this episode up soon.
Yeah. So the workshop that is coming up, it's on October 5th at, I think it's 2 p.m. Eastern, if I'm remembering correctly. So this is all about sustainable business. So I'm really teaching the foundational principles of what it takes to create passive income in your business through an evergreen funnel, because there's a lot of misconception around funnels, that it's complicated or it has to be hard, or, you have to pay somebody tens of thousands of dollars to do it for you. There's all of this. I see resistance to creating the thing that is actually going to lead to the time and financial freedom that we all want. And so I really want to break it down in a way that's simple, in a way that's digestible, and in a way that anyone can implement. So even if you are just starting your business from scratch, my intention is that after this workshop, you will walk away with a plan to move forward.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I do mostly one-on-ones, which I already know, right? I spend so much time and energy and women that have just, blown that paradigm up and created something else. So I'm playing with the idea of scaling. One-on-one is not, unless I continuously up my prices, but it's more like how to bring that scaling, right? And that's so much of it is automation and systems.
Yeah.
So that I'm not in the day-to-day, right? That it's you've got these really proficient systems set up
that actually feel like you, that you actually love. That's not just some salesy, cheesy marketing template, and that actually allows you to serve people, because it's not just about making money on the internet. Right. Of course we get to do that, but it's about impact and transformation and raising the collective consciousness ultimately.
So good. So good. Yeah, because our impact can increase, right? I can only see so many women a day, right? Yeah. So when we set up these really efficient systems, right, my work can get to more people that can be served by that can grow, right, and expand, and then, raise the consciousness you were saying. So I'm really excited about the workshop. I'm interested a little back before we get into the wealthy women vibe. How did you get to this place? Were you I just want to be a sales funnel expert? I'm sure organically just kind of happened.
Yeah. So how I got to this place, I think that this is a commonality that pretty much every entrepreneur experiences, is that business is born out of contrast, out of struggle, out of not enjoying your life. I went down a very traditional path of lots of school. I actually trained to be an engineer and worked in that field for several years and was no, this is not for me. The 9 to 5 is not the vibe. In human design, I'm a projector. So
I saw that.
Yeah. So the whole working 8-hour days, which is not really 8, it's more 10 or 11 because of the commute and the getting ready and all the stuff. It was just not working. And I wasn't lit up by what I was doing. I knew that there's an impact that I'm here to make that the traditional office job was not allowing me to step into. And not to say that these jobs are across the board horrible, they work for some people and that's great, but I just knew that there was something more. And so I've been in business now for 4.5 years or so. And a lot of that time was trial and error. I'm not one of those stories where it's like, oh, I scaled to 6 figures in my first 6 months, and that happens for some people. Like, that's the thing. That is a reality. It's not just people out there saying that and they're all scammers, that's not what's going on. There are cases where people have that success, and that's wonderful. And I believe that each one of us, we're on a unique path. So maybe if you have that experience of, yeah, my business took off right away, maybe you're going to meet the challenge going to 7 figures. Maybe your challenge is going to look different from someone who it took them years to really get their business off the ground, as is the case with me. And there were so many times, again, kind of relating back to my human design, where I felt that bitterness, right? That bitterness of like, why isn't it happening for me? Like, I know what I have is good. I know I'm here to mentor and be a leader and help others. So like, what's the disconnect? But here's the thing, because I went through all of that, now I can actually help people, right? If I had this like overnight success where it was like, oh, it's just so easy, then if a client comes to me and is like, why isn't my content converting? What's going on with sales? Why is no one joining my program? Why do I feel burnt out? Like, I wouldn't be able to actually help them.
Right. Does it spark you up? Right. Because we learn so much on the entrepreneur journey, right? But you stopped at like this one little niche, right? The sales funnel. Like, does that like jazz you up? Is that exciting to you? Is that why you like stayed and set up shop there?
Yeah, because, so I also had, a firsthand personal experience with the way that coaching businesses are kind of taught in the online space, right? It's a very traditional model of like, you pick your niche, right? You have a specific solution to a specific problem, you market to one person, and then you enroll for your private coaching. And you can make 6 figures by taking on 10 to 15 one-on-one clients. And then you do that for a while, and then you do a group program. And then, it's like this whole like kind of linear process that a lot of business coaches are teaching. And it works for a lot of people, but it also fails for a lot of people, because taking on 10 one-on-one clients is a lot.
Right.
That's a lot.
That
like
energetic exchange is massive.
Yeah. Yep. And I've seen so many coaches where they'll have a launch, right? It's like, oh man, I just had like a 50K launch for my one-on-one program. But then 3, 4, 5 months later, their Instagram's deleted. They're not coaching anymore, because it's nervous system burnout, and you can't serve at your highest when you're in that burnout state. And I just experienced this firsthand for so long. And I knew that there was something else, like passive income, selling courses, selling products, being able to scale, serving people one to many versus one-on-one. Yeah. I knew that was a thing. And I knew that if I figured it out, a lot of my problems would be solved.
Yes.
And if I could teach this to people who, I don't want to say are like resistant to automation or resistant to sales funnels, but I do believe, and I've seen that there's a large group of entrepreneurs and coaches, especially in like the spiritual space, who are really like the idea of like traditional marketing doesn't really sit well with them. It's like, oh, do I have to be like icky and sleazy and salesy for this to work? Do I have to do countdown timers and fake urgency and upsells that don't actually help people? And, because that's typically how funnels are taught. And so I wanted to find a different way that would actually reach people and resonate with people who are here to change the world, who are here to, like we said before, like raise the collective vibration, because humanity is at this very pivotal point. A lot of our traditional systems are being questioned. A lot of components of our economy are being questioned. A lot of the powers that be are being questioned. And, the internet and technology, it really opens up this incredible world to serve in a way that feels good to you, and to create a life of freedom, and to help others create that too.
I love information. Like, I'm a studier and I read, and then one of my giftings is like, I'm so open here. So I take in a bunch of information, I integrate it, and then I have a gift of being able to translate that really beautifully so like people can understand. And I've studied with quite a few people, and it's so interesting how they tell you like this way worked for me, this way worked. And oftentimes those will contradict. I've studied with two different mentors, and they're like, the specific example was follow-up. One of my business mentors was like the sales and the follow-up, right? Like 8 to 10 times later, like that's when the sale is, or I forget the percentage she mentioned. And then this other mentor that I'm working with, she's like, I don't ever follow up. She was like, never. She's like, it's attraction based. And I was holding those two, right? And that's one thing I do too, is like hold the space for duality. They both are right. They both work, you know? And it's like, and then taking that information, holding both possibilities, and then finding what is my truth within that, right? Because then there's another way. There's a third and a fourth and a fifth, right? There's endless options. So I'm really interested and attracted to like authenticity, right? Like what is because that's when I'm going to be most magnetic. If I can find a sales system or funnel or whatever that like matches my vibe and what feels genuine and authentic to me, that's really where I'm going to see massive success than like trying to like cookie cutter, you know, trying to make this work for me. And I like people like you, like the disruptors, like, you know, so that we can really like create that authenticity, because that's what makes somebody, you know, magnetic.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up that example of like follow up or not follow up, right?
Yeah.
It's like, do I cold DM people or not? Do I do sales calls or not? Right. And like with cold DMs, like I just saw like the expression on your face. That's how I feel about it too. And it works.
Not my vibe.
It works.
Yeah.
There are multiple 6- and 7-figure coaching businesses that are built on cold DMing, and it works. Right.
But I know
but it's like,
that because I'm not a match to it, it wouldn't work for me. I already know that. I'm not even trying.
Yes. Because one of the so I guess there's kind of two things that are coming through. One, it's not just the outcome that we want. We want the outcome in the way that we want it. So you could say, yeah, I want an online business. I want to work for myself. I want to make passive income. I want a life that looks like this, this, and this. Well, you could go and be an affiliate marketer and create that. You could go and be a coach and create that. You could start a blog and drive traffic to it from Pinterest and be an Amazon affiliate or whatever, right? There's so many different vehicles and ways that you can get to an outcome, but what's the way that feels good to you, right? And so the other thing is the way that I teach to the best of my ability with where I'm at now, right? I believe that I'm always growing and evolving and there's always more depth to be accessed. But my core, I guess, conviction or kind of like mantra around like teaching and creating, you know, educational content is to really focus on the fundamentals. Because when we talk about like sales, like going back to your example, right? That's on the level of tactic to follow up or to attract people with content, right? These are tactics. Yeah. But what's beneath that? What's the foundational principle of sales? Well, the person who ends up buying from you, they have to believe that you're the one to help them, that your product is going to work for them, and that they can do it, right? Those are like the fundamentals. So how you go about instilling that belief or creating that bridge where they can go like, hey, this is actually the path forward for me. There's like a million different ways you can do that, right? But it's going to remain the same. Those are foundational principles of sales and marketing.
So I want to tell everybody, you have these really wonderful, I just watched, I saw you have more, but I watched Melanie's and I watched Amanda's. And what's really neat is I was exposed to Melanie like probably a few years ago, and she didn't resonate with me. And I have enough self-awareness that I knew like, I'm not a match to her yet. I knew that I would be because what she was doing in the world was magnificent. I hadn't calibrated to that level yet. And so she comes back into my world a couple of weeks ago and we're like this, right? Like, I'm like, okay. So I had done enough shifting that was like, when she came back around, like, I mean, it was just a moth to a flame magnet. And I jumped in, I did her like E3 thing. And then I signed up, I got Femme Fatale, which will be in February. And then right now is the exponential wealth. But it was like, I was a fuck yes, let's do it. Right. But I thought it was really neat. And I wanted to share the story of like, I wasn't there. I didn't vibe with her at all a couple of years ago when she came into my world. And I just wasn't there. I hadn't calibrated enough because the level at which this woman exists is profound, you know? So I'm celebrating myself because it's a testament to the work I've done in the last few years, so that like her and I can exist in the same space, and then to me be a yes. And then we just had day 2, of Exponential Wealth. And I know you joined AFE, at least when I had seen the videos. So I'm really interested in your experience. I'm going through it. You done it last year, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I really want to hear kind of your perspective and results and feelings and everything that you had from that program.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like there's like so much that we could unpack here. So I think the first thing that maybe I want to say about like my experience in AFE and Exponential Wealth, like specifically, was that I was incredibly triggered pretty much the whole year that I was in like her programs, especially around like business and money, because a lot of that. So I ended the AFE last September, October, like that was Exponential Wealth was like the last program that I did with her. And that was like kind of the phase, or like the end of the phase of my biggest like struggles in business. So most of the time that I was in those programs, I was in very much like feast or famine mode and like, why isn't this working kind of vibe? But for whatever reason, like you said, like I was a match at that time. Like there was something there, you know, and in hindsight, I can see like just the personal growth, the emotional intelligence. Gosh, looking at myself back when I first started the AFE, it's almost like I was like a totally different person.
Yes.
Like just super like reactive, like blaming, like just not in my power whatsoever. And so in my experience, those 12 months really helped shift the inner state.
Yes.
I didn't see a whole lot of external like transformation in terms of like money in my bank account at that time, but it's paid off like later. And sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes we join a program and we have these hopes. We're like, oh, this is going to be the thing that like makes me the money that makes me successful. And then it doesn't, but it works later. You know,
Yeah,
it's like, it's
100%.
all compounding. It's all stacking up. And there's not going to be any one like magic bullet that's going to fix everything. It's kind of like you're building a foundation of your house, like brick by brick, right? It's not like there's just like one and done.
100%. And with nothing. That's what I teach my clients too. I'm like, it's a cumulative. Every little time, right? You make a different choice. Like it's building up. It's like, you have to believe in that, because that is, and then it'll change, right? But it's like, this moment was only able to happen because these 3 years behind it happened, right? So we want to give credit to this like one aha moment, but that couldn't have occurred if you hadn't put in the work, you know, the years that led up to that. So like that, I know for my clients, they feel like relief when I like remind them of that. They're like, okay, like I can believe that this is all working towards something. But she like, I'm only in class 2 of Exponential Wealth, and she is like blowing my fucking mind. Yeah. The expansion, right? Like I know it'll pay off. I know whether it's like right now or later or what, like it'll happen because I'm different. There's going to be like before I was in this program and then the after me that was in this program, you know, like, because I'm already different. The first class I remember was like the idea around like, is it worth it? Is it worth, you know, $50 for this steak or whatever? She had a fish analogy, a $77 fish, right? And I do that. I was like, fuck, I do that. I'm like, are these shoes worth $100? Am I going to get enough wear out of them? Am I going to like, you know, and I was like, I nitpick down to it. And she just comes in with like, I want the fish. The fish is $77. That's the cost of the fish. And like, I was just like, wow. So can I play with this idea of like, just getting rid of, is it worth it? You know?
Yeah. Because the wealth is in the experience. And the only way you're going to experience that fish is if you pay $77, because that's the price of the fish at that particular restaurant. Yes. You could go to Wendy's or McDonald's and get fish for $4. You can still have fish at different price points, But if you want that experience, if you want that experience of wearing those shoes, how that's going to make you feel, it doesn't really matter about the utility so much. It's like, do I want the experience or not? And I think that's a really powerful lesson, because we can always create our experience of life, regardless of how much money's in our bank account, regardless of what we can afford. You could, in theory, experience the same or very similar amounts of joy, fulfillment, satisfaction from a $4 McDonald's fish sandwich as you could from a $77 piece of fish at a fine dining restaurant.
Yeah.
It's about how you interact with this world and what's going on in here and in here, your mind and your heart, right?
Yeah. What I'm finding is like, she's so expansive. Just being in the room with her, like I can feel my energetic field like whoosh. And she brings in like all of this like possibility. Like today I got to re-listen. It was this morning. The field of potential, the field of possibility, and then the field of, I forget the third one, but it
predictability.
Was like, oh yeah, thank you. And I re-listen, right? And I study, but like I took her advice, like the first time I just be, let me receive, right? Because when we're taking notes and studying, you're accessing a whole different part of the mind, right? As the student, whereas if I just be present with her, that's a totally different experience. So when she does it live the first time, I just be, I don't take any notes, and then I'll come back to the replay and I'll digest a little bit more, but I will listen. I'm a fantastic student, I think, because it just lights me up. I love to study. So I'll watch it like 3, 4, 5 times, and I'll get nuggets each time. Mm-hmm. And it's just because it's so layered, it's so expansive, and I'm in a place to receive it. But she has like changed my life just in her being.
Yeah.
Like that is so powerful. Even if she doesn't like even speak, right? Just her presence is that expansive, and I feel like Amanda, you did another video on her. I think Amanda has very similar vibes, right? She's done so much work that like she invites you to like calibrate to her energy, yes. And it's just so freaking expansive. And my mind is going like, what's possible? And then that she's teaching you how to get there. I'm like, oh, I'm just soaking it up.
Yeah, it's like with both of those women, Melanie Anlayer and Amanda Francis, they both have this unwavering energy about their beliefs. It's not like they're just repeating it. It's not like it's just theory. It's like it's actual lived experience. And so like what you said, like just being around them, it transfers because it's real. It's like their real experience of this life. There's no question.
Yeah. Have you taken Amanda's stuff?
Money Mentality Makeover. Yeah, that's the one that I've taken.
I took that one too. I bought a couple others too. And I will constantly, I'll just put her on because of what she does. Just having her play in the background and stuff. It's an energetic invitation to rise. So even if I'm not like consciously hearing her, I'm calibrating to what she's saying, the energy she's giving out. So I'll like constantly have her playing and re-listen. I redo it like every 6 months. I'll redo the Money Mentality Makeover because I'm different. The 6 month ago Amity is different than I am today, right? So I'm getting a different experience from it, and I hear differently, right? I'm decoding differently than I did before. And what's wild is like, they're so different. I have found like Melanie is I haven't found like any similarity. Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is neat because she coached a lot of these women, and we'll talk about the wealthy women. A lot of them, I don't want to say at the top, but at the higher caliber, right, are intermingled. Yeah. They're coaching cross mix. They've coached with each other, a lot of leaders, right? Melanie has a lot of leaders in the space that she coaches, rightfully so, right? You would go to her when she reached a certain level. Fuck, I would, right? Once I reach a certain income level, I would go there too. So I think that's neat that they all like cross connect and mentor, but they're so radically different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, you know, there are, I want to say, like, let's just use like spiritual truth, right? Like there are basically a million different ways to say that we are all one, that we are all connected. But you may have heard it like hundreds, thousands of times, and it didn't land until you heard it again in a slightly different way.
Right.
And that's what I think is so powerful, and something that is really helpful, especially if you're a coach, to own, because there really is no, you can't actually copy someone else. I mean, of course, like you technically could if you wanted to just like word for word copy someone's business, which wouldn't work anyway.
Right.
But just this, like this fear of like, oh, like, you know, who's going to want to work with me? Can I get to the level I want because everyone else is already doing this work? Well, it's like the information is not going to come through you the exact way it comes through someone else, because consciousness is not redundant. Like there may be similarities, but we are each individually unique.
The other thing that really impressed me with Melanie was like her level of gratitude. It's like oozing out of her.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that, like, of course she's a match to millions of dollars, not because of like any of that, but because of the way that she lives and be. Every moment is beautiful and appreciated. And it was like, it makes sense to me how she has magnetized that life is because of this depth of appreciation and gratitude for everything, you know?
Yeah. And that was there even before the money was there.
I know. I think that's how the money got there, was because of that. Who wouldn't want to be around that? So if we think of like magnetism, right? And money having this energy, that's magnetic. I want to be around her. You want to be around her. Plants and animals want to be around her, right? Because it's just this overwhelming appreciation and gratitude. So of course, not only money, but everything is going to want to be around that energy because it's attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really powerful. I think that a lot of people today, just, I mean, in general, probably at any time in history, are more on the negative end of the spectrum internally rather than positive. You know, if we're really honest with ourselves, like how often have you woken up and the first thought or first couple of thoughts is like, ugh, another day, you know? And like, maybe it's not that extreme. It could be like variations, not to say you wouldn't have moments of gratitude throughout your day, but really like get really real. You know, what is the percentage? What would you estimate? Like it actually takes work to be in a state of gratitude. It's not just like our default, right? And especially the way that social media, the media, popular culture, various elements of society, you know, conditioning, right? I know that this is a lot of the work that you do with like hypnosis, like deconditioning.
Yeah.
Because we are essentially supported in being unhappy people.
Yeah.
Almost every system around us is like, yeah, go be unhappy. That's how life's supposed to work. Like you have to work at gratitude, really.
Yes. Thank you. I will, because you see a lot of manifestation videos and it's like they highlight the beautiful, easy part of it, which, and Melanie touched on this. You do get there. You do get to this place where it's like, it's easy and it's your default state, right? And there's this grace and ease and elegance to the process, right? But let's talk about the shitstorm that happens before. It's like, there's work required. When you want to get pissed off or when you're at a low, or right, do you take out your tools and, you know, use whatever helps you to like get out of that, to raise your vibration? Or do you sit in your muckiness, right? And it was like, that's the day-to-day work. It's those shifts. So it's like, you can see this highlight reel of like, oh, I manifested this and that, you know, and that does exist. But I always want to speak to like the real part of it. It was like, this is fucking hard. And it takes discipline and it takes commitment. Like it takes work. There does get you to a point where you do reach, you know, mastery or ease, right? The same way if you're learning how to ride a bike or something, it's messy in the beginning. Eventually you get your footing and it becomes really easy. But let's not miss that beginning, phase, it's difficult and it's challenging, and you have to make a choice. Do I continue with this paved out way that I already know, or do I choose something else? And that shifting there takes some dedication. It takes you have to pivot and choose something different, right? That will elevate you.
Yeah. And it is so easy to pick the same path, to pick the path that you've always been going down, right? Because it's predictable. It's that field of predictability. Like, you know what's there. You know exactly what's there. Even if you don't like it, it's familiar and it's comfortable, even in the discomfort. And when you are choosing another path, like, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be moments of initiation. There's going to be so many moments where you could just turn around. And it takes a lot of courage and bravery to keep going down an unknown path and not having that perceived safety of, I keep going and it's going to work. Because our minds want to say, oh, I keep going, and what if I fail? What if the worst thing happens? What if I die?
A lot of the work I do in hypnotherapy is that pivoting. So when we plant the seeds in the subconscious while they're in hypnosis, right? Then when they're in their conscious waking state, because we've created some new options in hypnosis, that pivoting is a little bit easier, right? And then when we reinforce it, then it becomes a lot easier. So it really helps my clients where they're like struggling with like always choosing this. Hypnotherapy can really, really help, right? Because then they become practiced at this. So when they're awake and conscious, they now have two options instead of just the one,
Yeah.
Tell me why you made those videos. I know you did Danielle something or other too.
Danielle Leslie.
Yes. And I'm not sure if you did more, but what was your like intention and your purpose for creating them? And then what did you learn by creating
Love
them?
it. So my intention and my purpose, well, just to back up, these videos are funnel and brand audits. So I'm looking at like 7 or multi-7, in the case of MELANIE, multiple 8-figure coaches, and kind of dissecting, like, what are they doing? Like, what is working and why? So I want to say there's like kind of like 2 components. The selfish component is me doing it for me, right? This kind of comes back to my human design as a projector. Like, one of my greatest strengths is seeing, whether it's like in others or in systems. Like, it's really clear for me to kind of like zoom out and see how something works, or see where there's a blockage, see where something could be improved, like for efficiency, right? Like to optimize.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to demonstrate my expertise. It's like, I'm going to put these videos out. I know how YouTube works. Like, they may get a few views, whatever, maybe no one's going to see it. But then, like in the case of Danielle Leslie's audit, that video like took off 2 months after I posted it. So I was like, YouTube's going to be a really great place for that. People go to there for long form content. And then the other side of like the intention was service. So I know that there's a lot of confusion in the online space about what works and why, right? It kind of goes back to like what we were talking about on the tactic level. And there's so many different tactics and things that people try, and maybe it doesn't work for them, and they're left confused, like, what's going on? And so I wanted to show these different examples of like how you can create wealth and success in your business using various different modalities. But then it ultimately kind of all ties back to the same fundamentals, no matter which way you actually go about doing it. Because like in the case of Danielle Leslie, she has a passive course and runs ads. That's her whole business model. It's very logical, analytical, structured, traditional marketing. She's a multi-millionaire. In the case of MELANIE, it's being consistent on the internet and sharing her truth and just keeping it really simple and really basic, right? Of course, there are like other layers to that, but like, exactly who she is, what she can do for you. And she just shows up consistently and is in that work and isn't really doing a whole lot of automation.
Yeah. So I'm going to link them so that the audience knows the videos I'm talking about. I found them so fascinating. One, because I love to study these women because I'm very interested. I'm a manifesting generator. So I am a doer, right?
Yeah.
But I love to watch and like study people. And I go back to the beginning if I can. And I find it fascinating to watch a woman's journey, because it's like, you're not, when you find somebody on the map, it's like they're here now. But what really excites me is like watching their evolution. That lights me up, because what that communicates is like, she started here and did this and this and this and this. And it was like, it just increases that possibility, right? It makes, it's relatable. When you just catch them at the, you know, multimillionaire, it's like great. But when you can see the journey that got them there, that's relatable to every woman, you know, and so it makes it more accessible. And I liked all three of these women have very different models, which I thought was so interesting to show that like, there isn't a one way. I mean, we know there isn't, but that was really neat to see that each of them got there differently.
Yeah. And one other thing that I think is interesting too is it's speaking to that journey. So another one of the audits I did was Rachel Bell. So she is known for doing online coach accelerator, right? She's basically like a business coach for coaches.
Is she like a real pretty blonde with like a nose ring or something? Okay.
I don't know about
no.
I don't know.
Is it, does she have like a Payday with Ray?
Yep.
Podcast? Okay.
Yeah.
I do know.
So her story is super interesting. So I did the audit on her, I want to say like a month before she shut down OCA. So she had grown her business to like $5 million with this one, like, it was like a hybrid live group program that had a passive like course element, you know, modules, but then also live support. She would basically take coaches through the process of just creating their coaching business in 90 days, using kind of that similar framework of like niche down, you know, solve a problem, do a live launch, work with people one-on-one just to like get your business off the ground. She did that for years, right? This is very traditional marketing. We could call it more like a masculine business model. And then she took a break. She like went through this phase of like pivoting. And now if you go to her profile, she doesn't sell OCA anymore. She's a feminine leadership coach, and she's actually in Ashay Sundara's mastermind. I don't know if it's like her mastermind, but she's in like a group. There's like a group I've just seen on stories, right?
Okay.
And, you know, Ashay was mentored by MELANIE, right? It's like this whole like kind of world. And it's just so interesting to me to see this transition of like, like you get your business off the ground using the proven systems, right? Conversion copywriting works, sales strategy works, solving a problem on social media works. These things work. But then at a point, it seems like so many coaches, they will want more eventually. And they'll switch to more of like an energetic business model, not doing necessarily all of those strategies, or rather maybe not so robotically, I want to say, because it comes almost like second nature. It's just like a part of who you are. You can write a post and have it convert without having to look at a template. You just wake up and you make money. But I think that there is, for many people, there is a phase of like having to follow a strategy to build that momentum. And this may be kind of going on a tangent, but I do see a lot of coaches who try to skip that strategy phase and go straight to the energetics. And for some it works, but for a lot it doesn't. I think that there's a high degree of value in really mastering like the fundamentals.
So beautiful that you said that. The women that I follow, it's both, right? They teach energetics partnered with the strategy, because when you just use one, you know, it's not going to work. Like you have to use both, you know, and then navigating your own personal, authentic way through that, right? Like what feels aligned and right for you. The other thing that I think that coaches go through is like boredom. Like when you get, right, part of like the challenge, there's excitement in the challenge. Like, I don't know how to do this. And it might be frustrating, but it's like, I'm excited. I get to learn, right? Or I get to hire someone, I get to work with somebody, I'm learning something new. There's that excitement energy. When you have mastered something, so like using Rachel's example, like she got to, it was mastery. It could happen with her eyes closed. She didn't even have to try. For me, that would get boring. And I would be like, okay, on to the next, right? Like, because I find I thrive in the learning of something new and being a little bit challenged, you know? And then once I finally like mastered it, we let that go and we do something else, you know? So how do you think coaches navigate that kind of, I know a lot of coaches will say like, I burned my business down. Have you heard that? Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I assume they're just meaning I changed, I got bored and I created something else, right? Because we have that ability, that freedom in entrepreneurship. So what's your take on coaches coming up against that?
Well, I think that there are kind of two ways that presents. So like in the case of Rachel Bell, like she truly mastered her craft, right? There's no question generating multiple millions, helping young. I know. And like helping her clients generate multiple millions too, like the actual proven results monetarily are so impressive, right? Because it's one thing to say like, oh, I'm like a 6-figure coach. I'm a 7-figure coach. Okay. What about your clients? Are your clients getting those results too? Right. And hers were. So that's awesome. She genuinely mastered that. But what I will also see are coaches who don't truly master something and then burn their business down or pivot because what they were doing before isn't working, or it's not working as fast as they need it to. Right. And so I think that it just comes down to self-awareness. It's like, have you truly mastered something, or is it more like shiny object syndrome? You know, are you putting yourself in this energetic field of need of like, my business needs to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 this month or else, right? I need to fill this coaching program this week or else. Like that is a very like repellent energy, and burning that down and pivoting and shifting. Well, you're just going to be repeating history, right? if you don't learn from that experience, because I think, you know, really getting a business off the ground, I mean, it requires so much discomfort, so much pushing your edge, so much choosing another path. And sometimes, you know, you could be, I don't know if you've heard this expression, like 6 inches from gold, you know, you could be like digging and digging and digging and digging, and you're so close to hitting that chunk of gold, but then you quit and you burn it down because you think it's not working, when really you just had to keep going a little bit longer.
How do you allow your human design to inform like your business? I have a reading. I got my chart back, but I have a reading set with a young lady to like go take me deeper into it, because I really want to know how to use my human design like blueprint as an entrepreneur. And I'm a manifesting generator. So we operate like a little bit differently, right? To like the yeses. And then I'm still learning. I don't fully know, but to use that as like a next level, like superpower within my business. So you as a projector, I don't really know what that means, but how do you utilize that for you to make decisions in your business?
Yeah. So there's a couple of like layers to it. So the first layer would be knowing your type, right? Projector, generator, manifesting generator, reflector. I feel like I'm forgetting something.
No, there's only 4, right? Generator, reflector, projector. Yeah. As far as I know.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just like one of those like brain fart moments.
Do you study it, or did you get yours read?
I study it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just something that I self-study, and you know, it's probably something that I'm going to eventually get a certification in and like pursue, just like, because I love to study too. I'm like very like much a learner student type vibe, and it's super fascinating. Yeah. So you look at your type, right? And then your strategy and your authority. So strategy, for example, for a projector, wait for the invitation. And that was actually part of what informed doing that series on YouTube of the funnel and brand audits. So you don't just wait for the invitation and sit back and do nothing. You express your genius, like what you're good at, and share that with the world. And then the invitations come, right? So
I know I invited you to talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. See, right? And this actually ties back into can you keep going, even if you don't receive the results right away, even if you don't receive the invitations or the clients or whatever, right? Because if I had put those videos out, and then if I didn't immediately get clients or requests for podcasts or whatever from that, I could have deleted them before you saw them.
Yeah.
Right. I could have pivoted. I could have scrapped the whole thing. So you know, your type, your strategy, and then your authority. The authority is basically like how you make decisions. So I'm an emotional authority. It's all kind of around like my feelings, right? And then your profile. So your profile, there's going to be 2 lines.
Yeah.
Mine is 6-2. So the role model or the hermit. The first number is conscious. It's how you express how people see you. And then the second is unconscious. It's kind of like you and you. So for me, how that would inform my business is that I am here to model what success looks like. I'm here to actually like live my work and really show up as that person that others can look to and be like, hey, I want to be around that energy. I want to do what she's doing. Right. And then on the flip side, I need a lot of alone time. I love hermiting. I love just like going within. And that's when a lot of my insights come in. So just like that basic like layer of your human design profile or your human design chart can be really helpful in business. And then a layer deeper is your centers, like what is open, what is defined. So open centers, that's where we're more susceptible to conditioning, where we can be more influenced. And, you know, there's questions you can ask yourself to see if you're operating from the conditioned self or from your authentic self for each center. I'm not going to like dive super into that, but that's like another layer you can go into, right? And even if you have open centers, that can also be a really great place for wisdom. It's not like, oh, shoot, I'm just conditioned here. Like, oh, well, it's like, no, this is a place for me to like own more of my power. So like, that's really cool.
I have an open head center. So she was telling me about like, that's why I'm open to all this like wisdom and information. And then part of my gifting is translating it and sharing it.
Yeah. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Were you saying something else?
The last thing is the channels and gates. So that's like the numbers, right? The numbers on each of like your centers. And then if they're connected, they're filled in with a color. So I've found it really powerful to look at the channels to see where those connections are, because that's where energy is flowing really strongly. And you can look up, and each channel has a theme. You know, you can look in the human design book or in the Gene Keys book. I don't know if you're familiar with Gene Keys, but that's kind of like,
really. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good. One of the founder of human design, it's like one of his students went and did this other kind of like branch. And the way that he writes about each of these gates, it's like totally different. And for me, I feel like it lands really powerfully.
That's awesome. As a Manny Gen, like I can get into way too many things at once. So just because it's exciting, you know, and fascinating. So I am a little more discerning about, because I'll jump into 10 things and I'll get overwhelmed, you know, but I chose all those 10 things. So even though I thrive like in that environment, it is on my list of things that I do want to explore, but just not yet. So if I can hire someone who is an expert in it to help me, you know, and then if I get around in the next couple of years, like diving deep within it. But I also think there's something about hiring someone who can help you, right? Rather than like learning yourself, which I love to do. On my personal journey is finding like what I want to do myself and what I want to pay someone who, you know, ideally is better than me at whatever it is. Right. And I think that's part of being a entrepreneur too, because I'm never going to scale if I like want everything, right? You have to delegate.
Right. Manifester is the 5th one.
Oh, there's
projector, generator, manifesting generator, manifester, and reflector. I was like, I knew I'm missing one.
Okay. So there's a manifester and a generator, and then there's the blending of those two.
Essentially, yeah. Manifesting generator.
That's what I am. So aspects of both those two types. Okay. Yeah. Once I got like my first chart read, I was like, it makes so much sense why I am the way that I am. People would make fun of like, I start something and then I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. Like I put myself through massage school, and the day I graduated, I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I went to like this other thing, and people look like, what do you mean? You put in all this effort, you went to school. And I was like, yeah, I'm done with that. I don't want to do that anymore. And they didn't understand it. And then when I got my chart looked at, I was like, oh, I'm made this way.
Yeah. And so that's funny that you bring that up, because I've done very similar things. Like I went to a yoga teacher training, finished that, never taught yoga. It just ended up like being for me.
Yeah.
But then that's not, so I'm not like the manifesting generator being like multi-passionate. That's really like one of your strengths, right? In my case, that actually came from my 6th line in my profile, the 6-2, because a 6th line operates like a line 3 for the first third of their lives, for like the first 30 years. And the theme for the line 3 is trial and error. So I had to try out a bunch of things. And that also explains a lot of my backstory with business.
Yeah.
Like I didn't just hit that 6 figures in the first whatever, how many months. There was so much trial and error that led to like a wealth of experience and knowledge, right?
Yeah. And then I love how you say, so I have, part of my backstory is with, alcohol, and I've been sober like over a decade now. And I can relate to another human in that realm that someone who never struggled with alcohol would be able to. And so touching on like, when we have these personal experiences, right, all your trial and error, like if I hired you and I was having trouble and you were just easy breezy 6,000 or 6 figures, right, within a month or two, like that, that doesn't help me at all, right? I need someone that actually has like ran through the fire, is a few steps ahead of me, and then can share that wisdom, down path. And so I feel like that's really where the value of that comes from, in a place of leadership, is like, I can help you, having gone through this path that was not fun, but made it to the other side. And I think, there's so much wisdom and value to be born from these like painful challenges.
Yeah. And it's so important to have compassion for yourself when you are in that fire of the challenge. So important, because the challenge itself is not really that big of a deal. Like it's not going to kill you. Like it's not the end of the world. Like we all can make it through, but it's the resistance to what is. And there can also be another layer of resistance of like whatever you use to cope with the challenge. So I'll just give you an example. Like in my own history, there have been many points where I have coped with challenges using marijuana. And I know for me that is not the most supportive. I could go do breath work. I could go tap. I could go journal. I could just sit with the feelings. That would actually be more supportive. Right. But in those moments, what was accessible to me was smoking a joint. That was where I was at. That was what was available. And so you can either choose to be like really judging yourself for going and smoking weed, let's say, just using that example, or you can just accept it. It's like, this is the best I can do right now. Maybe I'll try something else later, but I love myself anyway. I'm going through it, doing what I can,
And there's so much relief in that statement. I have 3 children and one of my daughters is 16. And that's like kind of a theme that she's working through now, is like just teaching her how to like release the resistance, right? Like there's this pattern of like making herself wrong, right? Like with you smoking, like and I think Melanie talks about like the compounding of the negative emotions, right? Like you've smoked, that's what happened. Now, are you going to throw in, well, I'm disappointed in myself, or some guilt or some shame, and it's like, and we often make it worse than what actually is there, right? So if we just bring some like acceptance, right, or some grace, then it's much easier to move through and let go, because we didn't compound it with a bunch of crap,
Yeah. And then it helps you make different choices in the future too.
100%.
If you give yourself that love and compassion, it's like it opens up more ideas, like better solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think you're able to elevate easier, because you didn't weigh yourself down with those heavy emotions. Right. So the next time it happens, since you didn't make it wrong or bad to do that, you might not smoke. Right. You might choose something else, because so I like that. What is, we have a couple minutes left. Who is in your mentor, list now? Like, what are you studying? Cause you're like me. So what are you into?
Okay. So I love this. So everyone that I've done like funnel and brand audits for, I have learned from. So Ashay Sandara, Rachel Bell, Melanie Ann Layer, Amanda Francis, Danielle Leslie. Those are like some of the people that I've either been in like programs, courses, whatever.
I'm going to have to go watch now. Are those on your YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. I caught 3 of them. I didn't know about the other ones. I'll go watch those. They were fascinating because I love that stuff. I totally geeked out with you when you.
Nice. I think the next one I'm going to do is Teal Swan, actually, which is, she's a bit different than kind of all of them because she's very much in like the mentorship space, but she's not like a coach, you know, it's like kind of different sort of business model.
Did you watch her special on Hulu? It was like a 6 episode.
Nope. I watched her deconstruction of the footage, but I'm not interested in the documentary itself because it's
okay, so I watched, I didn't even know, it just popped up one day and I'm like, yeah, I love her, right? What do you mean? What's the deconstruction of the footage? What's that?
So are you talking about the deep end?
Yes.
Is that what it was called? Yeah. So on her YouTube channel, she has a series where basically, and I mean, this is true for pretty much any form of media. There's a narrative, like the producers and the writers and everyone on the crew, there's a narrative that they want to create for the viewer. It's like just telling a story, right? And sometimes this can be really beautiful and sometimes it can be really damaging and inaccurate. And so a lot of that documentary was taken out of context. And I saw
her as the executive producer because I noticed that storyline and I was like, if she's an executive producer,
why would she consent to that?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So tell me more.
Yeah, I would recommend going to her YouTube and just, you don't have to watch like all of them, but she has several where, because she has a team, because she does these events, because there's always content being made, right?
Have you been to one of her events?
No, I haven't.
I went to one when she was out here.
Is it good? Did you have a good time?
Yeah.
I would love to go.
Yeah.
So she actually has proof that shows what really happened. There's a lot of scenes that portray her as like this manipulative cult leader type vibe. And 100%. She has proof of what actually happened, like the full conversation, like not edited, the full video clip, not edited. And it's just so interesting to me to see how things can be manipulated or spun. It's just like when you watch the news, like the little news bites of like a politician saying something that's like, that sounds horrible, but then you hear the whole sentence and it's like, oh, that literally was like not bad at all. Right. I don't know where I was going with that.
I got to watch that because I watched the documentary and it did not, the first couple episodes were fine. And then it took this like turn. And I was like, why is she letting herself be portrayed in this way? Like, I understand she's really controversial, right? And I have her book, The Completion Process, but I align with a lot of what she says and does. I'm a fan.
Me too.
You watch that documentary and you don't want to be a fan of this woman but I'm so glad that she put out there. I think I had been involved in her stuff like for years before. So when I saw the documentary, I had enough to kind of I can hold both opinions. Like this part of her may exist, but I also know this part too. Right. But I think if someone just coming into her world, seeing that, it didn't put her in a, positive light, but I'm definitely going to go check out the footage on that so I can see more of, but you were going to do another audit, you said, on her.
Yeah.
Does she share? Because I know Melanie and Amanda, and they share their numbers, right? So you can kind of get, does she share? I've never really heard her talk about financials and stuff.
No, but she's absolutely has to be having like a multiple 7-figure business.
Totally.
Absolutely. Because I mean, the number of her audience size, she has a membership, she has the in-person events, she has retreats, she has a certification program, like she has a whole team, she has like artwork for sale, like and books, there's no possible way that she is not a multimillionaire. So I'm kind of making that assumption, but she doesn't share the numbers. And, it's interesting because with Melanie, with Ashay, with Amanda Francis, all of these women either have had in the past or currently have active like hate groups on the internet directed at them, saying you're a cult leader, you're manipulating people, you're doing unethical business practices, you should be, thrown in jail, like really nasty stuff. And
how did you find this? Do you like Google it or what how are you aware?
Well, I think, let's see, Amanda talked about it. She had a
I've heard
Facebook,
her.
somebody created a Facebook group that was dedicated to like shitting on her basically, which is insane. Melanie, when I was in the AFE, there was an event where she basically like had this, like she fell and had like a concussion or whatever.
Yeah.
But what happened right before that was she was scrolling on this Facebook thread of people just like talking really nasty things about her, and then ended up falling. But those challenges, she definitely came out stronger on the other side. You know, it's like all part of the path, right? So they've talked about it. And then Ashay, a couple of weeks ago, made an Instagram post that really triggered a lot of people around like pricing and payments that she has since taken down. But that spurred this whole like crazy, it's still going on, this like basically like hate movement against the coaching industry and saying these people are in a money cult and it's a pyramid scheme. So it's, I mean, it's like with visibility, with leadership, you're going to open yourself up to this scrutiny. And somebody like Teal, right? I can only speak for myself, but just her free content has transformed my life. Like everything of hers that I've watched, I'm like, how do you know what's going on in my mind? She's also a reflector, by the way. So she's here to be the universal mirror to people, which is why she can see so freaking clearly about like the human condition. I can't imagine that anyone would ever call her a cult leader. Like what? But this is the reality. This is the duality, you know, that if you want to be impactful in this world, if you want to be visible, if you want to lead lots of people and create something big, you're going to have this type of stuff happen.
You have to be able to hold it in your energetic field. And these ladies have expanded enough where they can hold. Because Amanda has talked about it. She's like, you show up anyway, even with this hateful Facebook group. I have something to say. That's never going to stop me from talking. I acknowledge its existence, but I am doing something over here and I'm going to continue to do it, you know? And it was like that strength, that commitment, right? And being able to hold, like, you have people that love you and you have people that hate you, you know? And I think for these women, I imagine that hate is such a small percentage. You know, who's another one? I haven't done any of her programs, but I watch her free stuff. Is Catherine Zankina, the manifestation babe?
Yep.
Is she on your list of ladies to break down? I think she shares financial. She's pretty open about.
She does.
Yeah.
She's not currently on my list, but now she is, because that would be a really interesting one. And I know that she has also been a target of various hate campaigns, you know, and also helps tens of thousands of people on the daily, right?
Yeah.
And you would ask me a question. I just wanted to answer quickly about like, who is my mentor now? Like, what am I doing now? Now, nothing. Now it is like a very intentional integration phase where I'm not working with a coach. I'm not in any programs. I'm intentionally reducing, if not eliminating entirely, all of my content consumption. That includes like personal development, spiritual type of content. Nothing, because
I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah, no. And I wanted to say this because there is a narrative in the industry that says like, you know, you have to always have a coach. I always have a coach. I always have a mentor. You have to invest big if you want to go big. And there is truth to that for sure. And there's also something so priceless about letting your own genius come through. And it's just a season, right? Like I know like in 2023, there's definitely going to be some investment, some mentorship. I can just feel that. Yeah. But right now it's like, man, I just want to let everything, all the knowledge that I've taken in, all the experiences I've had, just let that be with me right now. And it's actually such a hard thing to do. Like the mind wants to go and consume content. The mind wants to go invest in another course or hire a coach. It's a dopamine hit, right?
It is.
We can become addicted to that loop of like, oh, I just watched this video. I feel so good. It's like, okay, but what is your truth? You know?
I'm so glad you said that. I've heard Amanda speak on this too. She's in a bit, I know she was real into Gabby Bernstein, right? That was her like transition. And then she said she got to a point where like, she doesn't take in anybody else's information. Like she just got so locked in with her own. And then she thinks like the outside information, you know, can kind of like maybe kind of fuck her up internally. So she shelters herself from that because she's just so locked in, you know? And I was like, I love that. I don't know if that'll ever be how I operate. I love to study. I love to learn, but I absolutely am 100% on with you on the season of integration, because there is such thing as overwhelm. There is such thing as like too much information. One of my girlfriends talked about, being like informationally constipated. She was like, you need to poop, in the sense of like, you need to be sharing, teaching, creating, right? That we can actually like take in too much content, too much courses, too much whatever. And if we aren't actively releasing in some form of creative way, speaking, teaching, writing, you know, if it's not being released the same way if we eat too much food and don't poop, like there's this content, information, constipation. And I was like, I always think about that now, like the in versus out, right? So if I ever feel like I've taken so much in, I cap that. And then I create a bunch of stuff, you know, to make sure like the outflow is good. And then I'm now in a position to receive again, you know?
Yeah.
But I had a couple years of like hardcore constipation. I was just taking it.
Well, and that's how most of us have been conditioned through the traditional like public school model. It's to be like good little workers, good little students, just do as you're told, take in the information, pass the standardized test, right? And it's a totally different shift to be like, wait a second, I am a leader. I can lead people. I have original ideas that are really good, you know?
Yeah. And we need that clarity, I think, to get there. Like the space that you've created, I think such brilliance is going to be born within you from that, right? That clearance, that integration. Because if everyone else's information is coming at us, like where's the space in the room to create our own?
Yeah.
And then like, just, is it a regurgitation? Is it unique? Oftentimes I find, especially in this realm, these concepts are not new. I mean, even the stuff Melanie talks about, what Amanda talks, it's not unique and it's not new, right? It's ancient universal truths, right? Yeah. But like you said, it's the unique way that consciousness moves through them that makes it so magical, so special. So if we take what we know, what we've learned, and then use our unique creative expression to share that with the world.
Yeah. Yep. It's so powerful.
You talked a little bit about it in one video. You talked about femme fatale, and I was interested in your experience with that. I'm really, really excited because I err on the side, being a Manny Gen, I err on the side of just more masculine energy as a natural state of being. So I'm super, super excited to master and understand like the feminine side.
Yes. So that program is my favorite of Melanie's.
You just
absolutely life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. I took that so I took it twice in my year in the AFE. She ran it twice. Both rounds were different and both rounds were exceptional. The first round, I took it right as I was dating my now partner. So it's been almost like 2 years. And this relationship is like so different than any that I've had in the past. Like it's so balanced. There's communication, there's trust, there's accepting one another, like genuine love, not trying to manipulate or control or be like weird, you know? And I attribute that to the Femme Fatale program. So I don't want to say like too much about that because you brought up like masculine. There is a component of masculine energy for sure, but there's another component that I won't say because it's Melanie's. Like she'll talk about it and you'll get it. But it's like kind of like what's really going on energetically. So I'm so excited that you're in that. You're gonna love it.
I know. I bought both because I felt I was gonna get Femme Fatale, and then there was the exponential wealth, and I was like, I feel like that is like the perfect partnership that I want. Because the one other thing that I love about her is like, she's not just teaching you on these things. She's like, I want you to be a happier, more fulfilled person. Yeah. Right. She teaches on money and she wants to create millionaires and all that, like help you with that. But I can feel like her main mission, I want you to be more fulfilled in life. I want you to be more joyful, more, and I was like, that I can get on board with, like, and as a result, these other great things get to happen. But I just sit in her energy of like that gratitude and appreciation she has for every single moment. I want that.
Yeah.
You know?
And she talks about this too. She also has a manifest program with her partner, Kevin. That's also really, really good for relationships. But she talks about this like occasionally in her content, that's like the greatest thing that she's manifested, like that relationship. That's like the thing she's most proud of. And this is really interesting. So Kevin also helps in the business. He has an active role in the Alpha Femme brand. Together, they are this like crazy powerful force. Like Melanie on her own would be like a multimillionaire either way. But I believe that the level of growth and the crazy like exponential like wealth that she's creating is due to this partnership. Not to say it's like Kevin doing it or whatever. Right. It's the union. Because if you are, think about it, if you're not supported in your relationship, if you're stressed, if you're kind of resentful of your partner, that's going to dim your magnetism like crazy. But if you're with someone who it's like, not only do you have that love relationship and that support, but they're also like in the business with you. That's like some empire building stuff right there, you know?
And what I love about it is they were together pre-money. Like that, I think, is part of the success story, that they built this together. So it's not just her on her own. This is very much something that they did together. But she talks about like how they had no money and how they would like create this like feeling, right, of abundance, and how they would celebrate $20 and they would put a song on and they would dance. And it's like, and it's the exact same today. And it's just millions of dollars, you know? And it was like that, like I am in love with the story.
Yeah.
And I think the money, I'm always about the root component. And especially in my hypnotherapy work, like someone will come to me for like A, B, and C. And I'll be like, well, all this is happening because we're going to go to the root. This will heal itself, you know? And then that's the root. For me in her teachings is this deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for every single moment of her existence and everything in the universe. Like, I want to be by them. I want to be around them. And that's how she has this amazing life. But it comes from not, I want money, but she's just this internal state of gratitude that she's procured over time. And the celebration, she's all about the celebration. I got a payment for like $26. And I have on my list, like when we're done, I'm putting on a song and I'm dancing my ass off for this $26, right? And I want it to be the same when I'm celebrating $26,000, you know? Like, so I'm so thankful and grateful, like to be in this space.
Yeah. Yes. I love that you're in that. I love it. I love it for you.
Thank you. I know. And I know you would get it too, because like you have experienced this. And so I knew you would understand like where I'm at. Like I'm already changed. I'm only in like day 2 of one of the programs. Right. And I'm not even focused on results. I'm solely focused on like, I signed up, I said yes for the inner transformation because I have enough wherewithal, like my external world responds to my inner world. So I hardly ever focus on the outer world because I understand the dynamics. Right. So it was like, I knew by signing up, this was a full body inner transformation, that she was going to expand me in ways that I have never been expanded. And then having that cool thing about finding her a few years ago, not being a match, right? I listened to her and I was like, you know, and now having it, you know, fast forward and just being like a full body, yes, I'm in, and having her like transform my world.
Yeah. And that speaks to the power of consistent leadership, because imagine if she had done a total 180 pivot or is now like only a relationship coach or just whatever, just hypothetical, right? You know, you can see this a lot online, like people finding you, they don't buy right away. Maybe they don't resonate. They come back 6 months, a year, 2 years later. Are you still open to receiving them as a client, or have you burned down your business? Have you done something totally different? Have you, right?
Yeah.
Because like manifestations can happen overnight. People can find you and the next day pay you tens of thousands of dollars for private coaching. Those things happen, and that's great. And there's a lot of people who will lurk for months or years before investing.
You know, one thing that I think, because she said this is her 10th round of exponential wealth. And I think Femme Fatale is something similar, right? She's running the same programs over. And I'm wondering if you think it's her model, because you even said she ran Femme Fatale twice in the year you were in AFE, and they were different. So I'm wondering if, and I'm planting the seed for myself as a possibility, they're the same type of program, but because she runs them live each year and infuses them with who she is in that moment, do you think that's why she hasn't ever stopped the programs or pivoted? Because the programs are changing while she evolves. So she's not having to burn anything down. They actually are evolving with her in real time. So there's nothing to burn down. She comes to the table to share where she's at.
Yeah. So part of her like superpower is as a storyteller. That's like phenomenal. Like I haven't really come across anyone else who's as good as she is at telling stories and keeping people engaged. And so that's kind of one component. And another,
do you know
she
her
talks
human
about
design?
She's a manifesting generator.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe. And she also does talk about this, that she is her own best client. So her work, it's not just in theory. It's not just like, oh, I'm teaching this program, it's cool, whatever. It's like, no, she's actually going through the program. She's doing the journaling prompts. She's letting the universal wisdom and the foundational principles of each program like integrate with her present being. So in Exponential Wealth and Femme Fatale, the foundational principles are going to be the same regardless of the rounds. I think that she will add new insights or new practices as they come through, sure. But foundationally, it's like basically like the same program. What's different is that she's doing this work herself. So the stories are going to be slightly different. The way that she explains the foundations is going to be slightly different. And then what else comes through on top of it is going to be a surprise, because she's deepening into the work herself because she's her own best client.
I love that so much. I'm completely like just in awe of this creature.
Yeah.
And do you know what else that I think is so magnetic about her? She feels like she could be your best friend.
Totally.
Like at the same time.
Totally.
She's like this multi-million-dollar mentor, right? But I feel like we're besties, you know, kind of like, right? So relatable. So, and I like, that's magical too. Like that. And she speaks to that too. She's like, I'm right here with you, right? The numbers are higher, but it was like, as a human being. And she does, maybe through the storytelling, she does such a good job of like making you feel like that.
Yes.
Like
yes.
we're in the room just having coffee together.
It's the emotional connection. And she lets her range of emotions come through. She doesn't try to be perfect on camera. There have been so many times in my year in the AFE that I can recall that she is like crying, either for like something is like hurting her or it's like beautiful, right? She doesn't try to hold it back. It's like the full spectrum of emotion. It's like, that's okay. Like, and that's what you would expect if you're sitting across from your best friend. If they're telling you a story from their past that was painful and they start crying, that's totally normal. Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what she really brings. It's like the sense of permission to be fully you in your business, which I think is so beautiful too.
Amanda, thank you so much for spending your Friday with me. What do you have? Tell us what you have on, what's open. How can people, what are your offerings in this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So right now I have this upcoming workshop, the Sustainable Business Workshop, that's free on October 5th. And right after that, I am launching a program called Evergreen Funnels Academy. So this is a 4-week program to guide you through creating passive recurring revenue in your business. And this is really designed for, I want to say, like any stage of entrepreneur. These are not like advanced funnels. These are foundational. So even if you're just offering one-on-one right now, like it's going to meet you where you're at and help you build upon that. So I'm really excited for that. It's a new program. I've gone through it with a beta group of women, and they've experienced fantastic results. So I'm really excited to share that. And I also have private coaching available. So that's a 6-month commitment. And I take on 1, maybe 2 clients at a time. So those are the ways.
What you were going to say that earlier about you have a max on
Yeah.
your one-on-ones for energetic purposes.
Yeah, it's like 1 or 2.
Is the program live?
No, it is pre-recorded. And what I'm going to be offering for this round is live group coaching sessions. So each week there's going to be like a live Q&A, and then that recording will just be added to the program. But like right now is like, if you wanted live, this is kind of like the time, you know, and then it's going to be completely evergreen.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed. I would love to stay in touch, even if we just get together to geek out or share.
Me too.
Like, I really like you.
Yeah, same. No, I feel a connection. Like, I love these conversations, and we're just like so on the same like wavelength frequency.
I know.
Like,
I was so excited to geek out. I was like, she likes the same stuff I do. Like, I love to analyze people, like, what's working? How is this working? Like, how did they get here? Right? Like the pieces of the puzzle type deal. Yeah. And then we're studying things that are expansive, and the conversation that we're having. Like, don't you feel, I feel much more elevated than I did before we started talking. So just even us having this conversation is completely elevating our state, you know, and then sharing that with people, like them just listening, it's going to elevate them. I know.
Yeah. This kind of stuff like lights me up. Like, I want to have a conversation like this, like every day. That's like, it's so good.
Awesome. Oh, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, hun.
Yeah, you too.